Hey guys, welcome back to Tower of God New World. Now in this one we're going to do a beginner's guide, get you pointed in the right direction, make sure you understand everything in the game. Now if you played idle games before, it's fairly similar, but there are a few differences in this one. And then in future videos I will go more in depth into team builds, wishlist priorities and stuff like that. There's a bunch more to cover, but this one I want to get around all of the basics in the game. So the first thing we'll kick it off with is, what is your main focus in the game? There's basically, like any idle game, you've got two main game modes that you continually push side by side, and when you can't do one you do the other one, and eventually you will get stuck and you won't be able to progress. You might need to wait for some AFK loot and get that and then go again. But the two main modes are the adventure mode. This is like your campaign in any other idle game, where you continually climb levels and just you want to keep pushing this as far as you can, because by beating these stages it will increase your AFK loot after you beat them, and you want to increase that AFK loot so you can get the most loot possible. Now this game, it does have a side thing, which is story mode, which unlocks after you clear any chapter of the main campaign. So as you can see there, the next one after I clear adventure 7-40, which is the end of adventure level 7, it will unlock a new story mode. The story mode is basically easy clap. It's just free good rewards. After the first couple, you just basically get 10 summons every time. It's just freebies. But like I said, the main mode is the adventure mode, and the other core mode that goes alongside with it is going to be the trial area. So when the adventure mode / campaign is giving you the experience to level up your character slots, which we'll go into advancing in a sec, this mode is going to give you the limit breaking materials, which is these, to keep going along and leveling up your gear slots. We'll talk about it more when we look at gear slots, but these are the two main modes that basically will continue on forever, and you keep pushing them side by side. When you're stuck on one, go ahead and push the other one. This one does also give some summons and some gems as well, so it's nice to push these two. On top of that, you do unlock faction towers as well, which you unlock one every day, and then multiple, like Sunday, they all unlock and stuff like that. Really good for getting some summons. But essentially, the Trial of Chaos and also the adventure mode are your two core modes that you're going to push. Now on top of that, other game modes that we have in the game. If we go over here to the expedition, you have Arena, which is just PvP. Make sure you get 2 free fights per day. Make sure you use them all the time. You got Mock Battle, which is essentially just a boss battle. Make sure you jump in, do 2 battles every day, because they don't stack up. So you want to get those rewards every time. You got Conquest mode, which is a labyrinth style mode where you got 3 floors you go through, you defeat enemies and go through like that. In general, from what I found is you want to clear this. When you jump into this, I've already cleared it, but it'll have like a turn limit. Like you get bonus rewards if you clear it in a certain amount of turns. At the moment, based on what I've seen, you kind of want to do it in that turn limit. We'll go more in depth into this because it is an advanced game mode, and unfortunately I've already cleared it. So that is that one, but that's a labyrinth mode. Resets every 2 days. Definitely jump in and do that. Get some good rewards out of it. Beyond that, Alliance. So Alliance, you want to join an alliance as soon as you unlock this. The reason is, at the moment, the only thing we have is check-in, but there's also an Alliance store, which is really nice for getting gear. Now, like in every idle game, I don't recommend picking up the purple tier gear. I always wait to get the end game gear, because in the early game, what I find is, because you level more in the early game, you actually outpace the gear before you get essentially the use you need out of it. Some people will tell you to buy the purple gear. Me personally, I like to save all my guild coins for end game gear, because as you get further, the quality of this gear will increase, and I don't want to be buying purple when I just gradually get that from drops. I want to save it for the end game gear for my main characters that I'm using. But you want to get into an alliance as soon as possible, because that is how you're going to start accumulating these points. Now, there is going to be alliance events, but we haven't seen any of them yet. So at the moment, it's just to do your check-in and get some points. That's essentially what we're looking at there. Now, we have the workshop store as well. I'm still looking at the math in this one. Honestly, these seem too expensive at 500,000 gold each. Definitely arguments could be made for buying gold, but at the moment, if you're not upgrading gear, kind of like I do, the strategy I play, you don't really need the gold, so you can save the gems there. I never really buy gear out of this. Most idle games, you normally buy the one that costs gold, but honestly, just the weight in expense is too much for me. But I'll run more math and I'll do like a complete shop guide in the future. But at the moment, I'm just skipping all of it, to be honest. And that's pretty much the main thing from that shop. Next up, we move into the agency service. That's just a dispatch mode. You just do auto dispatch auto claim. It's free goodies. That's pretty much all there is to it. And that pretty much covers everything there is in game modes and stuff you've got to do on a daily basis. The one other thing is go ahead as soon as you get in and fill out your friends list. You want to just go in, jump in. You can either go to requests or you can go to search and it can just put people in. Go ahead, spam this, especially at global launch. Everyone's going to be trying to fill out their friends list because you want to get those friend points because they can give you summons. So like any idle game, fill out your friends list. Pretty good to go. Now, the next thing I want to look at is the growth system and have a little bit of a chat about this. Now, try Essence Facility. It's fairly basic when you unlock it. It gives you the tutorial. You use basically these crystals to unlock things. Now, I am personally... You can re-roll some of these stats because it's random and you can try and get like A's with higher percentages and it's basically just boost stats of characters. So for instance, which one am I in at the moment? If we go back in here, so I'm in strength. You've got dexterity and intellect. So whichever one, you can re-roll it, try and get a better stat because it boosts their stats. But the percentages aren't crazy enough for me to want to re-roll it this early. So as you can see up the top here, I've got 300 of these ones. I could spend 100 to re-roll these, but what I want to do is I want to save it to keep unlocking the next node. Then once I've unlocked all the nodes, then I will look to re-rolling. So that's essentially the way I am playing this one. Next up, I want to take a look at this Shinsu link. Now, this is like leveling your characters, but in this game, you don't level characters individually. You level like your battle positions essentially, but don't worry because you can swap them around. I can say put this character into the level 69, and then I can move that 69 to the back position. In combat, you can shuffle it around however you want, but it's just essentially the spread of your character levels. Now, in every idle game that I play, this is always a discussion on do you power level a character or not. Essentially with this thing, the most gap you can have between your lowest level character and your highest level character is 20 levels. Now, keep in mind, at level, basically every 20 levels from level 20 to 21, 40 to 41, 60 to 61, so on and so forth. There's like I'm not going to call it limit break, because there's a different form of limit break in this system, but it's like a break point where when you do that upgrade, it's going to not just cost you the experience and gold, but it's also going to cost you this Shinsu. Now, the thing about those limit breaks is they give you a lot of extra stats. So let me show you here. For instance, you can see I'm level 79. So this level is going from 929% on my stats to 947. So we're getting like an 18% stat increase, but let's level that one up. Now you can see when we go past that one, we're now going from 947 to 1109, which is a much bigger, that's about 150% increase on our stats, if my math is correct, because my brain's cooked. But, you know, roughly 150, what is 152? Something like that. Dude, my brain's cooked. But you get it. These little breakpoints where now you can also see that it's using this Shinsu, they are much bigger stat increases. So what I like to do personally is, depending on your account too and the characters you have. So I've got two really good bruiser units that can take a lot of damage and also deal a lot of damage. So for these two, because that's the way they function, and basically Yuri as well, who's the green girl that you start off with, she's fantastic for this as well. And essentially those units, because they take damage and deal damage, getting them power level to that next breakpoint can really help my team, because I don't really need to level them evenly for the stats on my support characters, so they can just slowly lag behind. It doesn't really stress me. So the way I like to do it is I like to bring my two main characters to that next breakpoint, which in this case was 81, then I'll gradually bring my three supports up, and as soon as I get them all to 81 to get that limit break, then I'll push my first character all the way to 101 to get that next limit break, then I'll push my next main character up. Now, after I get those two up, I experiment. I don't really know what I prefer with my supports. Like, I could theoretically just level these guys one at a time and keep creeping one level into them. This time I decided to go for that breakpoint, but essentially I do like power leveling. I like getting my bruiser carry units up to that next breakpoint because of that big stat increase that we get. Hopefully that made sense. And that is the basic way we level up. We're leveling up slots, but once again, it doesn't matter. If you want him to say be level 69 and her to be 81, you can do it and you can move the slots around. Then there is a limit break. Essentially what that is if we go to limit break here, it upgrades the slot itself, not the level of it. It's the quality of the slot, and also increases its max level potential. As you can see here at C1, we got a max level potential of 140. At C2, we've got a max level potential of 160. So that's something you'll have to do. For these, I generally just level these evenly. It does stop you from over leveling them too much anyway. So that's going to cost you these purple things. Hopefully that makes sense, but I just want to jump into combat quickly and just show you that you can swap those things around if you want to. So if I go over here and say I want her to be 81, what I do is I just take those two out and then I just put her back into that slot as the 81, and away you go. There's the swap. But say I want her to be level 81 in the front row, then I can just swap them around. So you can shuffle it however you want to shuffle it, and it will work out. So it's just a matter of whether you want to have slots power leveled or not. Like I said, I am a fan of it. Other people may not be. So that is what you've got to decide for yourself. I suggest experimenting and seeing what you do. But if you have like a bruiser type unit that deals damage and also can soak up a bunch of damage, they're normally the good targets for stuff like that. Moving on from that, I wanted to talk about characters and character progression. Now, we have the SSR Plus characters. These guys are super rare. I highly recommend rerolling to get one of them. The two ideal targets, which I'll go through more in depth in another video, are Karaka here and also Evan, who is this guy, who's a crazy support. After that, I do really like Evan Kell as well, and then the others are a little bit behind that for me. She's a good stall rogue tank thing as well. There's some strats you can do, but essentially I think rerolling for one of these guys is a really good option because they're such low drop rates, so having one is going to be really beneficial on your account. But besides that, I wanted to jump into and look at the upgrading systems and go through what my recommendations are. First of all, we have gear. In general, I've only upgraded gear so far when there's a mission, when there's like a daily quest that I want to complete to upgrade gear. In general, I don't like upgrading low-level gear because if we go to my AFK loot, if I upgraded all my blue gear, it costs a lot of gold. But in my AFK loot, I'm already... let's see if I can do one quick one and get it just to see. Okay, you see I'm getting blue, but I just got 2 purples on my last run through. So if I went and upgraded all my blue gear, keeping in mind I'm only on day 3 of this account, I would have burnt all that gold into some blue gear, which now I'm already replacing. Actually, I think I haven't even equipped it yet. So let's go ahead and auto equip. Yeah, as you can see, I just got 2 purple pieces this morning. So if I went and upgraded all that blue gear, then I've just sunk all that gold into it, and now I'm getting gold stuff. So in general, and even with the purple gear, I'm going to avoid upgrading it unless it's for my one main carry damage dealer, which is a bit more nuanced, but in general, I avoid it. But yeah, for carry damage dealers that are like your tank / main DPS, which for some people may be something like Yuri, then there is a case to be had for it. But in general, I don't go upgrading all my gear on all my characters because, like I said, I'm on day 3 and you progress early on in these games pretty fast, meaning you're going to outscale the gear that you've upgraded and basically just be wasting gold. So that is the first thing. Moving on from that, we have the limit break system. Limit break system on your priority. So each time you get it, let's go to a non-character like this. Let's go to something like this. Let's go to you. So each time you get a duplicate of that character, you get 60 shards. That's for SSRs. SRs are a different kettle of fish, but I'm not too stressed about that. And essentially with the limit break, you can choose one of their 3 skills to upgrade. And once you've got all 3 of them upgraded, meaning you've gotten 3 dupes, it will give them a constellation, giving them this extra bonus. So if I get one more duplicate of him, I can get his next constellation, which is this green one, which gives him the extra attack, so on and so forth. As you can see, you're going to need a lot of dupes in this game, but you know, it's a long-term thing. That's the way these games go. But essentially, once you with your priority on which skill to upgrade, it's going to just depend on the character entirely. There's no like hard and fast answer. It's not the end of the world if you don't upgrade the right one, because the game doesn't let you cripple yourself and like max out one and not touch another. Like I said, once you get 3, you have to upgrade all 3 of them, and then it'll upgrade your constellation, and then you do the same again. So that is the way the limit breaking works. Essentially what I'm saying is don't stress too hard about which one to upgrade with your one dupe. it's not the end of the world. It's not going to destroy your account. Eventually you'll get all 3 and then you'll just go up. The next thing we have is proficiency. Now, proficiency is how you unlock their signature weapon or exclusive equipment, whatever they want to call it. And these are going to give you bonuses along the way with what you get. And then you're also going to get upgrade materials for these through AFK loot and stuff like that. For these, really narrow down on the character you want to do, because you're not going to be able to just upgrade all of them willy-nilly. The great thing is with proficiency, you can pretty much get them all upgraded. Now, if you have a character that's not a max proficiency, you can grow them with these books. However, you can also grow them by taking them into any form of combat. They will get proficiency points just by being in combat. And once you do have them maxed out in proficiency, kind of like this guy, when I go into combat, it will give me some of those books instead of giving him experience, which is a really nice effect for growing those proficiencies and unlocking the exclusive equipment. But once again, just make sure it's an exclusive equipment you really want to upgrade if you do go into the upgrading of it. I've held out on all of mine so far, because once you upgrade, you know, the resources for upgrading these are pretty scarce early on, so you're not going to be able to go willy-nilly with them. But unlocking them is going to, with proficiency on your main team, is going to be very, very valuable. The final thing we have also on proficiency, it does give you a bunch of stats as well, which is also really nice for your main characters. Then when we go into this one, the friendship gifting, you can send gifts. Now, as you can see, each character is going to have gifts that they prefer. And if you give them the gifts that they prefer, each gift is going to give you 200 experience instead of 100. So try and stick to only giving them the gifts that they prefer, so that you can get that and spread it out evenly. Yes, you could just give them like everyone else's gifts and upgrade their stats. But if you're doing that, you are losing out on efficiencies, and you may pull a character later on that needs that gift, and then you can't upgrade them. So I like to stick towards just giving them the gifts that they like and playing it at max efficiency. But that is pretty much it for the character upgrade and the character progression system. Next, I want to touch on combat, but I'll probably do a more in-depth combat guide in the future. But essentially with combat, something you got to remember is the elemental advantage system in this one. It's got your standard blue beats red, beats green, beats blue, and then it's got your purple versus yellow. Now, the interesting thing with purple versus yellow is if you've got purples on your team and the enemy has yellows on their team, if you have more purples than they do yellows, then your purples have the advantage. If they have more yellows than you do purples, they have the advantage. So it ends up being that you just want to have more of that color than the others. And then obviously for the 3 factions, the 3 colors, the red, green, and blue, it's just, you know, red beats green essentially. But with that, the advantages that you get, I should be able to click here and show it, but it's not working. So I'm just going to bounce over here and show you. The advantage that you get from it is actually quite large. When attacking, elemental disadvantage equals half damage, and elemental advantage equals 2 times damage. So in a lot of games, this is like a 15%-ish type thing, but in this one, it's like it's if you're weak at element, you're dealing half the damage and taking twice the damage. That is a big effect. So when you go into combat, even if you have like a beefy character, and this is why I like the yellow and purple units, because you can make it so that they're never at a disadvantage because you just have a full team of them. But as you can see, this character here is at a disadvantage. So she's going to be doing a lot less damage and taking a lot more. Just only to those 2 water units, obviously, not to the purple ones as well. Sorry, water, blues. I always want to call it water. But then if I go ahead and put someone like her in there, you can see she's got the advantage. So now against those 2 units, she's dealing more damage and taking less damage from them. So playing it around, even testing out some of the SRs in these slots in some of these fights, if you're coming in with a disadvantage, sometimes SRs with an advantage can prove very useful. So always pay attention to that. But obviously strategy is always going to be a thing as well. And sometimes you can use a unit with disadvantage and beat a stage, but just something to think about when you're experimenting, because when you get stuck in this game, you've just got to experiment or wait, and that's essentially the things you've got to do. Also, when you are in combat, chuck that 2 or 3 times speed on. Once you unlock 3 times speed, turn off the animations. Basically, that's where you want to be with it. And then auto. Some characters you can play in manual to get better effect, but in general, leave auto on, put it on 3 times speed. Then if you're at a stage you're like, oh, if I manual that ultimate, I can get it. Then you put it back to the 1 time speed, put it on manual, and see if you can play through it manually. But just know that there is a 3 times speed and a 2 times speed. 2 times speed is available instantly. instantly, and the 3 times unlocks a little bit later on. And the final thing I want to jump into is summons. Now, I'm going to do a whole summon video about wishlist and stuff like that, but essentially, should you summon in this game? In general, yes, you need to summon to progress. It's just a thing. You can save for future banners. We don't know how the banner system is going to work in this, if there is going to be a banner or if those characters just go into the normal mix. We don't really know. In general, I'm just summoning, but if something changes in that with like their banner system or something like that that makes me want to save gems, I will. But in general, in the early game, you really need to summon to progress. But hey, if we find out about some OP banner, I will definitely let you guys know that maybe you should save. But it's going to be the fastest way to progress early. Also, once you hit certain points of summoning, you get achievements, which then give you more experience, which allows you to level and then go faster and so on and so forth. Now, I just wanted to quickly touch on the wish list, but like I said, I'll make a whole video on that. Just know that this first unit is going to have the highest rate up. These guys are all going to have a rate up, but you can still get units that you don't have in your rate up list. And in general, I always think of going for either a yellow or purple core at the start. Like I mentioned, in combat, you can always make them not have a weakness just by having more of them in the team. So they're just reliable like that. And for my main rate up character, I like to go for a unit that can deal damage and ideally absorb some damage too, so distract the enemy. But I'll go more into that in the future. But yeah, don't look at this wish list and say that is the wish list. I'm still trying to get guys like him to experiment. I'm trying to get a one-off of him and him as well. So I'll do a whole video that hopefully lays out how I look at the wish list. Once again, I'm not always correct. These are just my thoughts, but I will make a video on the wish list before the launch of the game to get you guys around my thoughts anyway. But as always, guys, that is going to be it for the beginner's guide. Final thing is you can play this game in landscape. You just get an app, like a rotation control app off the App Store, and use that and force landscape. You can do it. For me, on emulators, when you do it, it looks hazy and scuffed. So I just widen my aspect ratio on BlueStacks to make it a bit wider without getting the hazy, busted look that the landscape gives. But it's an option if you want. Anyway, that's going to cover it. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing the next one. Cheers.